Would you say that Fiora is a skillful champion? She does hit you for max health true damage by tapping your vital, and can do that 4 times with her ultimate. Well, whether you like Riot's implementation of raising a champion's skill floor and adding skill expression, you might want to see just how low that can go as we look at what the old Fiora was like. Notoriously lacking in skill shots, infamous for taking no skill, and outplaying you with a single button and right click. And yet, I've offended all of those old Fiora players who absolutely loved her, including myself. Past and present, counterpick or one-tricked, Fiora always had the potential to be incredibly powerful, like, all the heroes from Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of this video. Smooth transition, let's go! Raid Shadow Legends is a game. You might have heard of it, in which case you've probably heard how it has over 600 champions with millions of champion combinations you can strategize and think up to take on all sorts of dungeons, campaigns, raid bosses, and PvP. And you can go further beyond by equipping your teams with powerful artifacts to boost their strength with hundreds to find and use, playing the game your way. You can play it anytime and anywhere on your mobile device or on your PC, and you can download it using my QR code or link in description. New challenges await and dreadfully exciting endgame beckon you to challenge them, like Raid's Doom Tower. You're going to need your best champions and ultimate strategies to climb this tower, and they're going to need buffs, debuffs, and lots of ways to remove debuffs, for example, if you want to get anywhere up this terrifying tower. What's more, Raid's released another new feature this month, Awakening, and a tough new dungeon called the Iron Twins Fortress. If you succeed against the Iron Twins, you'll be rewarded with the ability to awaken your champion, allowing you to choose a powerful blessing that can transform how they perform in battle. But here's the big news. Raid has just released a super powerful legendary version of the awesome champion, Death Knight. Everyone's waited for this for a long time, and Ultimate Death Knight is perfect, and all you have to do to get him for free is to log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and October 27th. What a deal. There has never been a better time to get started, so use the promo code DKRises for a bunch of free items to level your new strongest champion all the way to level 50 and 5-star Ascension. New players, you can use my link or QR code to not only download Raid, but get a free starter pack worth almost $30, a free champion Verges, and also all this cool loot. Be sure to get these rewards from here in your inbox because they're only there for the next 30 days. So get in there and have some fun in Raid. Thanks again, Raid Shadow Legends, for sponsoring this video. The melee carry class, as mentioned, has a few champions that some believe fit but others might not, like Jax and Olaf. But everyone can agree that Master Yi is the melee carry, in the sense that he is a melee AD carry, one who carries with auto attacks dealing very high damage. Old Fiora was very similar. She was a melee auto attacker with attack speed steroids, double gap closers, and a major way of dropping aggro, as well as a form of defensive ability that may have aged poorly had she not been reworked. Fiora's passive was Duelist. It allowed her to regenerate health over 6 seconds each time she dealt physical damage, stacking up to 4 times when against champions. This in-combat regeneration allowed her to heal when attacking minions, and gained much more healing when fighting a champion. This worked in the jungle as well. Her old Q was Lunge, dashing at a target enemy for physical damage. Over the next 4 seconds, Fiora could cast Lunge a second time at no additional cost. Fiora's old W was Riposte, passively giving her 15 to 35 attack damage based on ability level, with an active that parries the next enemy basic attack within 1.5 seconds, denying its damage entirely and dealing magic damage to the attacker. It scaled with 100% AP as Fiora's only AP ratio. The damage was flat and didn't scale with the attack's damage or anything like that. Fiora's old E was Burst of Speed, and as the name implies, Fiora gained bonus attack speed for the next 3 seconds after casting. Each basic attack or Q she landed on an enemy unit while active granted her movement speed for 3 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. The cooldown could be refreshed on kill or halved on assist, and the active ability also reset Fiora's auto attack. Finally, her old ultimate was the infamous Blade Waltz. After being cast on a target enemy champion, Fiora would become untargetable and dash and deal damage to random nearby enemy champions 5 times. The attacks would either spread across nearby enemy champions or they could hit the same champion multiple times, but attacks after the first dealt 40% damage. The first and last hit would always hit the targeted champion. It had a strong AD ratio of 90% bonus AD, or a potential 126% bonus AD on a single target, applied on-hit effects, made you completely untargetable for the duration, and all it took was a single click. If you thought Duskblade Alpha Strike Yi was bad, oh boy. This was something else. But at least it had an ultimate cooldown. Fiora typically went top lane, and her gameplay and combo usually was just Qing twice on a target enemy to keep up, damage and auto them down with E, and maybe parrying an auto attack with W, then just pressing R to either evade an attack or skill shot, or just to finish them off. Essentially, she was a sticky, stat-sticky melee carry. Not dissimilar to the likes of Master Yi or Tryndamere, with a big AD stat buff on her W passive, and an attack speed and movement speed active on her E. Plus, the double Q gap closers and R kept her nice and mobile. The W would see less use over time as more champions relied on abilities rather than auto attacks, including AD champions. And those who did auto attack probably did so at a rapid, high attack speed. Talks of a rework began around 2014 with Ginso at the head. You may have heard of Ginso as the namesake of Ginso's Rageblade, and also one of the developers of Dota 1, the modded map for Warcraft 3 that League and other MOBAs are based on. He also created most of the original champions for League way back then, and community responses for a Ginso rework seemed mostly positive from what I'm able to dig up. The original post in the link here doesn't seem accessible at all with no legible archives, but we can glean a bit from Ginso's own forum post in this thread, and going off my own memory. He addressed the main goals of the work-in-progress rework, issues with Fiora at that time pre-rework, and fulfilling her gameplay fantasy. He reflects that she's a pretty bland stat ball with no cool opportunities to exchange between her and her lane opponent. She would be moving from top to mid/jungle, with more ability to disengage and engage. The main changes would be seen in Blade Waltz, essentially changing it from a one-click mega alpha strike to a kind of steroid ultimate that buffed her basic abilities to basically create a Blade Waltz manually, allowing her to dodge and riposte actively with more opportunity to outplay with more mobility. He goes on to say that, with Blade Waltz active, the lunge would be like jumping around and hitting enemies like the old Blade Waltz. Riposte is like Blade Waltz's untargetability, and with how the new ultimate would allow rapid casting of these abilities, he couldn't imagine you don't get the feeling of Blade Waltz. Ginso said, the goal behind the current ult was to sometimes emulate the behaviour of the old one, but make it more timing and decision based, add more options, and add more counterplay for the opponents. I feel like the new ultimate offers far more opportunities than the old one, if one assumes that RQ emulates the feel of her live Blade Waltz, referring to the Q under the effects of the new R steroid. This forum interaction and the Riot blog post about the proposed Fiora rework built a lot of hype, and the Fiora rework would finally arrive in patch 5.15. And it wasn't exactly what we were led to believe. New Fiora's abilities were similar enough to the old one, with lunge being omnidirectional, riposte now riposting all damage before attacking back in a direction, E being an attack speed buff and reset, but only for 2 attacks now, and her ultimate... well, let's start with the passive. Fiora's new passive is Duelist Stance, identifying vitals of all nearby enemy champions, lasting 15 seconds once identified. Vitals are a weak side of an opponent that Fiora can strike with her auto attacks or abilities to proc, dealing bonus, percentage maximum health, true damage, and granting Fiora movement speed and a heal. Fiora's old passive, In Combat Regeneration, is somewhat preserved in this, though this was more about quick hit and run attacks rather than small trades, at least depending on the matchup. Fiora's new Q only has one cast, but no longer needs a target. It automatically hits the nearest enemy at the length of its dash, prioritizing champions and vitals. The new riposte enters a defensive stance, parrying all damage and CC for the next 0.75 seconds, then stabbing in the target direction, slowing the first enemy hit, and if she parried a stun, riposte stuns them instead. It also still has a 100% AP ratio. It isn't listed, but at some point, riposte also gained a cripple effect to slow the target's attack speed down. Her burst of speed E was replaced by Blade Work, still granting attack speed, but only for 2 attacks, slowing the enemy with the first and dealing a guaranteed crit with the second. The ultimate is now Grand Challenge. This exposed all 4 vitals on a target champion, allowing Fiora to strike each one for the usual bonus damage and healing, and if she strikes all 4 or the target dies, a large healing zone appears for 5 seconds to heal Fiora and her allies. As you can tell, there is no steroid ultimate or active blade waltz. This rework idea just disappeared. Though from what I can remember from the Ginso post that I can no longer find, the riposte changes basically went through as an ability that can parry any damage. I believe under the effects of the proposed ultimate, you would be able to move during riposte, including with lunge. The proposed E, purely going off of memory now, I believe was called Disengage, as a Quinn-style backflip kind of ability. Instead, we have the omnidirectional lunge on Q that refunds cooldown on successful hit, somewhat allowing a delayed disengage after a short trade, or simply using the movement speed from vitals to move away after you've struck. Fiora had an overwhelming amount of true damage, sharing a damage type only belonging to Vayne before this rework, with the percentage max health scaling true damage. It scaled with AD and rewarded her for building such. Although the rework ideas wanted her to be a melee DPS in the mid and jungle, she ended up remaining in top lane with a bursty passive, ultimate, and E that only lasts for 2 auto attacks, really stopping her from being a melee DPS exactly, and could be a bit closer to the assassin that Ginso was trying to distance her from. That said, the healing from vitals and low cooldown on her abilities did allow for good sustained fighting, at least compared to a mage or tank, but not exactly a melee carry like Master Yi anymore. Fiora builds ranged anywhere from Trinity Force to work with her Q, to Black Cleaver tanky bruisers, and far fewer typical Glass Cannon melee carry builds. Crit builds may have emerged with the Sheen style Essence Reaver later down the line though. This rework met with many varied opinions, to put it lightly, and one of the first and most explosive was the reaction to her new splash arts.
Oh, no. Oh.
The pink highlights and parting in her hair were the first and only things to be reverted about Fiora, much to the dismay of some Fiora mains. The large changes to playstyle were opposed even before her rework, and only grew larger afterwards. Like a rework catered less to Fiora players, and more to League's player base as a whole, losing the mains but replacing them with far more happy players enjoying the new champion. Thus, the opinions of the few would be easily eclipsed by others, but this didn't cast a shadow on players that would despise Fiora's insane amounts of true damage or the ability to riposte. Post-rework Aatrox players may hate Fiora quite a bit. Personally, I did play old Fiora quite frequently, and though I was optimistic about both Ginso's rework idea and the rework we received, however definitely much more for the former, I quickly dropped Fiora from my champ pool. I just didn't vibe with the new kit and didn't like the vitals mechanic either to play as or against. I was pretty bitter about the rework we received when I was hyped for the Ginso one, but that's just my opinion, and I'd be most definitely interested to hear yours on this topic, as I feel like that proposed rework doesn't get mentioned enough. Which rework would you have liked to have seen, and what do you think about each iteration of Fiora? And of course, what are your thoughts on that first Fiora splash art? Thanks so much for watching. Shoutouts to the members OKJ, Nashborn, Awesome Tioda, Light, AJGBeat91, Ash Ketchum, War Squid, Genocide, Ultimate Ground, Kayle, Boblax, Luxius, my dad, and Unknown22 for supporting the channel. Thanks once again. So many reworks. Will matchmaking ever find true balance?